That's the line that Iran is taking right now. In particular, they want all sanctions that were put in place by the Trump administration, so all sanctions on Iran by the U.S. since 2017 removed. Notably, the Biden administration has responded they are not ready to remove all of those sanctions. I think what the Biden administration is trying to do now is review all the sanctions that are in place and consider removing just the sanctions that were put in place to punish Iran for its nuclear ambitions. There are, of course, other sanctions that were put in place by the U.S. for other reasons, such as Iran's human rights record and Iran's support for terrorism and support for Shia militias, which destabilize its neighbors in the Middle East. I think that's the proper approach for the Biden administration, but as you said, Iran may not be willing to accept that.
So you also say that, just big picture here, you don't think it's a good thing for the United States to be constantly zigzagging back and forth of these international agreements. We're in, we're out, we're in, we're not sure. Do you think that getting back in now, period, is the right move for the Biden administration, or do you think damage has been done, stay away?
Well, that's right. My view is that we have to be careful not to have a foreign policy that, as you said, zigzags with each president. So when we have a Democratic president, we enter an Iran nuclear deal. We have a Republican president, he rips it up. That's really inconsistent, confusing for our allies, confusing for Iran, and it's not going to benefit America or American security. So I think we should consider entering into a new deal, but the Biden administration has to sell not just Iran on that deal. It has to sell the American public. If the American public supports the deal, then it's going to be much harder for the next president, if it's a Republican, to rip it up, as Trump did in 2018.
Good point there. And to what you just said about America's allies, take a look at what Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says. He says, "Let there be no mistake, an agreement with Iran that will pave her way to a nuclear weapon, a weapon that's threatening our destruction. An agreement like that will not bind us in any way. There's only one thing that binds us: prevent those who strive to destroy us to carry out this plot." So those who seek to destroy the Israelis is the Iranian regime, right?
Right. And Netanyahu is right to be concerned about the details of any agreement that the U.S. enters into. But I don't agree with him that there's no agreement possible that could actually provide security for Israel. And we can have an agreement where Iran agrees to go back to some of the terms of the JCPOA, but also agrees in a way even more significant than the JCPOA deal to not have nuclear weapons ever in the future. We could set the horizon much further out than the JCPOA, which was 10 years and 15 years. But notably, even under the JCPOA, the Obama administration never agreed that after 10 or 15 years, Iran could have nuclear weapons. Iran is still a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Agreement, and it has to abide by that. And Israel is right to force Iran to abide by that.
Well, certainly here's to hoping that you're right and there's a way to get this down on paper so that it makes everybody happy, because it certainly looks like the Biden administration is moving full steam ahead, especially this coming week. Dave Tafuri, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Gillian.
You bet.